older to choose how they live as they age and to age with confidence. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to more than 100 million Americans 50 and older and their families, including health, financial security, and personal fulfillment. So, who's in the audience today, Joyce? Who do you see in the chat? If
Boy,
you
I
haven't
am
already,
so
please type your name.
Joyce, you're muted.
Dallas, Texas is definitely in the house. Oakland, Houston, McKenzie. Now, Texas is really here. Then we have California, Vallejo. What is this one? Alexandria. I've never heard of that one, but that's good. I'm glad we're here from California, which is rolling in. Now we also have like San Diego and Oakland and Oceanside and Calabasas, Carlsbad and Temecula and Corona, Oakland. I can go on and on. Thank you so very much for coming in. And we have one more, another person from Texas. And we have North Carolina, Betty. Take it away, Jacqueline. They are ready and excited like we are.
I'm telling you. Thank you so much, Joyce. And thank all of you for sharing in the chat. Happy May, and thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to hear from two experts from the organization Rhodes Scholars. During today's session, you'll discover fun, interesting, and helpful tips to ensure your solo adventures are safe and are anything but lonely or costly. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or new to solo trips, this session is for you. We're delighted to be joined today by Maeve Hartney, Chief Program Officer for Rhodes Scholar, and Rose Vidal, Volunteer Ambassador to Rhodes Scholar. Founded in 1975, Rhodes Scholar is a nonprofit organization that provides educational travel programs primarily geared toward older adults. We always like to share some fun facts about our presenters to help the audience get to know them a bit better. So, keeping in the spirit of today's topic, I'd like to start by asking both of you, what is your favorite place you've ever traveled? And just a few words about why. Maeve, why don't you start us off and we'll hear from you, Rose.
Good morning, everyone. As Jacqueline said, my name is Maeve Hartney and I work with Rhodes Scholar. I am actually based just north of Boston in the state of Massachusetts, so that's where I'm joining in. So I'm actually on my third cup of coffee today, since it's a little bit later here on the East Coast. But I am very happy to keep drinking caffeine because it's one of my favorite things to do. I've been with Rhodes Scholar almost 27 years. Next month, I'll hit my 27-year anniversary. So I've had the pleasure, and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit of travel. I was always one of those people who'd a wanderlust, to say the least, always like to go and explore new places, and finding a job at a place where we focus on our mission is educational travel has been really a dream come true for me. But one of the most exciting places I finally got to, which was only about a year and a half ago, was India. It's something I dreamt about as a child. I don't know. I was always fascinated by literature and everything else. And I always had this idea of like the smells, the colors, the essence of Indian culture. And I have to say, upon landing, that's exactly what India gave me. And while I only got to spend about 7 days there, I am determined at some point in my future, I will either when I retire or when I take a sabbatical to go back and spend 3 to 4 weeks exploring India and other parts of the country.
Okay.
Wow.
Rose?
Yeah. Hi. Good morning, California. Good afternoon, East Coast. My name is Rose Vidal, and I'm in Simsbury, Connecticut. So, like I said, East Coast, afternoon time. Let's see. I've traveled a lot, but I think the place that made the biggest impact on me was Egypt. It was always a place to go to, like you, Maeve, that you always dreamt about, thought about, and I just wanted to understand a little bit about our humanity, and the trip did not disappoint at all. We covered the pyramids. We went, on a plane. We sailed the Nile. Fantastic trip, and got a lot of questions answered and made some pretty good friendships and connections. So it's Egypt.
Good. Thank you both, Maeve and Rose. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Vince, who will interview them and find out all about solo travel. Vince?
Yes, hello. Thanks, Jacqueline. Good morning. My name is Vince King. I'm a volunteer with AARP California. And as an avid traveler, I'm very interested in today's program. Actually, I just got back from Egypt a few weeks ago. So yes, Rose.
Yay.
Totally agree. Amazing experience. So I think you've already kind of introduced yourself a little bit. And we wanted to know what you do or did for a living. So Maeve, we know that, but Rose, how about you? What did you do for a living? How long have you been working or retired? And how many Rhodes Scholar trips have you been on?
Vince, I'm pretty new to retirement, though I'm really not retired. I do customer service at the Air Museum here in Connecticut, New England Air. So I'm the person that says, "Welcome to the museum," and checks you in. Absolutely love it. Prior to that, though, I was in development for nonprofits. I worked for Habitat for Humanity and the Alzheimer's Association for together almost 20 years in development. So meeting people and getting out there is not a problem. Very easy to do. I've been on 3 Rhodes Scholar trips so far, Egypt being one, Costa Rica, and then I took a cooking class in Sicily, which was fantastic. And I'm scheduled to go to Romania in October of this year with Rhodes Scholar.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Whew.
I have to look into that Sicily cooking class. That sounds incredible.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
All right.
Yes.
So one question that we hear from solo travelers is whether or not they'll feel included and will make friends as a solo traveler in a group. So Rose, what's been your experience with making friends as a solo traveler? And have you stayed in touch with people that you met?
Rhodes Scholar makes it really easy. Once you sign up and you register for your class, you're gonna get an itinerary. You're gonna meet your group leader virtually. They give you recommended reading lists, so now you have something to share with other people that are now in your program. And group leader creates a chat room. So I used it many times to like, "Hi, I'm Rose from Connecticut. Where are you from?" And now you're meeting the people prior to even going on the trip. And then once you land, I mean, if you can get, they have the sign that says your name, Rhodes Scholar, or their name rather, Rhodes Scholar. So they get you, and a lot of times they make it so that you're coming in with other members on your team or in your group. So now you're sharing a ride. So now you're meeting them there. Then there's a welcome meet and greet. You're meeting them and you're continuing that conversation with the arrival orientation. And from there, the world's yours as far as making those connections. And honestly, I have kept in touch with people and the group leaders from my 3 trips.
Nice.
Yes.
So Maeve, is this in line with what you hear from other solo travelers on Rhodes Scholar programs?
It is, Vince, and it always makes me happy when you hear someone like Rose say it. You work really hard to create that environment, and it's really great when you do it. But I will say, this is sort of one of those things that we talk about when we discuss programming and new development and our quality of our programs, is sort of what we actually internally call our special sauce. And we actually don't make the special sauce. We decided it's really the participants themselves. But I think what helps that sense of, when you go in a Rhodes Scholar program, you really do meet people and become friends fairly fast, whether you choose to stay in touch with them. But you'll never feel lonely or alone, but you can choose to be alone if you want. But what we've often said is sort of, as we're developing new itineraries or even re-looking at old itineraries and how you can improve them, there's everybody who joins that group, the 20 or 22 participants, everyone has chosen that program for a reason. So even though you might be a group of strangers, you already have something in common. And so you plan sort of, the meet and greet, that first orientation, to help draw that out of people so they make the connections with each other. And it becomes a very natural environment of connecting with your fellow travelers, and learning together really helps that, because it's part of, you might sit through a lecture. So now at lunch, you have something you've all listened to together, and you'll talk about it together, and it creates beautiful, beautiful bonds. And we can't make that happen. It kind of happens organically, and it's a beautiful, I mean, we'll put things in place to ensure it can happen, but it does happen organically, and it's a beautiful thing when it comes together.
Very nice. Okay, so when we talk about solo travel, that can mean traveling completely independently or going solo with a group like Road Scholar. So, Rose, obviously you've traveled solo in a group with Road Scholar. Have you also traveled independently by yourself? And what are the benefits of each style of solo travel?
Well, I have traveled independently. The benefit is, right, you're in charge, you're in control. So you do what you want, when you want, and how you want, right? So there's no really schedule to follow, except it's whatever you decide. But solo travel, with Road Scholar, they give you an itinerary. You get to see what you're going to be doing. And honestly, like Maeve said, you those bonds are happening. So now you've got a shared interest. And again, you're going to know that prior to even meeting that person, because you're going to get that all online once you register, for your program. So and you can choose, if you don't want to go to that museum, I mean, you're more than welcome to stay back. That nobody's going to force you, but you're going to want to go because you're going to be part of that group, and you're going to want to experience that together. So the solo travel is very easy with Road Scholar.
Nice. So, Maeve, do you have anything else to add about the benefits of going solo in a group?
I have to say, I'd encourage group travel anyway, but I mean, that's just who I am and what I do. But that being said, for someone who's thinking about traveling alone for the first time, go with a group is really what I would say, because it is daunting to take off on your own. And whether it's to go to a different state or, go through airports by yourself, if it's a new thing that you haven't experienced before, it can be a daunting experience. I will say, once you do it, you feel really good about yourself once you have it done. Okay. But by going with a group for that first experience, at least, it takes away those details. Like, I'm just back from France at a family wedding. There was a train strike. What happens then? You don't have to think about that when you're alone. Now, in this instance, it was personal travel. So can I get to a wedding in the south of France in a day and a half with no trains operating? Was sort of what I had to, but anything like that that happens when with your a group, you don't have to worry about that. You know that you're sort of in safe hands with an itinerary, and you really, like, the focus is about traveling alone and learning more about yourself, and taking the time to learn about the place, and not being worried about the details, or like, where am I going to go for dinner? Can I walk to a local restaurant? All of those details are taken care of. So it allows yourself sort of immerse yourself in the experience and get the benefits of what it feels to travel independently.
Mhm. Great. So across the generations, there seem to be far more women interested in solo travel and solo travel than men. Maeve, is that what you're seeing at Road Scholar?
Yes, but it's been very typical since Road Scholar started in 1975 to actually have more females on our programs than men in general. So we've always skewed about, anywhere, depending on the year, 60% female to maybe sometimes as high as 70% females going on programs. But there is as many solo males traveling. It's just in a smaller volume based on sort of our history. But you are seeing that people are, I don't know, did the pandemic make us say, I'm not postponing things any longer, I'm just going to go for it? And so people are willing to take the risk and go alone.
But why do you think it is that women are more interested in travel than men?
I'm about to
Well,
share, but I'm happy to do so. I think men have, based on the age group that we serve, definitely the older end of our age group. So I'm going to say like 70 and over. A lot of times it's been the women who've been at like working at home, and I'm like been managing the home, managing the children, managing everything else. And some of the males of that age have had more opportunities to travel, whether it's work travel or anything else. And I think women are just like, you know what? I've raised the kids. The grandkids are coming through next. These are things I've always wanted to do for myself, and I'm not going to delay doing them anymore. I'm just going to go. And I think the idea of doing it with a group is also appealing to more women, because part of it is they're used to sort of, I don't know, planning all the family trips or planning, all of the things that they've been doing all their lives, and suddenly to have somebody else take care of the details and just go and enjoy the excitement of the destination or the educational theme of the program feels, I can do that and have some fun while doing so.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with that too. And I think more social norms, you've got a lot of women that blog, there's personal Facebook groups. There's a lot of social media out there that encourage women to get out and get out of their comfort zone, whether they're married or single, it doesn't matter. And that social norm that, oh, geez, I won't be the only woman is very empowering. And there's a lot out there for people to research and read out and look at different programs and say, you know what, I can do this. And make those connections even prior to making those reservations.
Yeah, and certainly, maybe I'm throwing out a hypothesis here. Maybe solo women travelers feel more comfortable traveling with a group because there's safety in numbers, as opposed to maybe there are a lot of solo male travelers who are traveling and we just don't know about them because
That really wouldn't surprise me, Vince. That's why I just think that, and there is a thing about women traveling alone. I mean, I would never arrive, and I do a lot of business travel too. So whether it's for personal enjoyment solo travel or for business travel, I do travel a lot, but I won't land in a strange city late at night, not knowing where I'm going to. I do like European flights because at least you always land so early in the morning. It's almost outrageous. And yeah, the disadvantage, you may not be able to get into your hotel room, but at least you know where you are and you get to see it by daylight. But there are things that I learned back in my, I don't know, early 20s backpacking and stuff that have lived with me about traveling solo ever since. And I have a daughter who's 20, about to do her first semester abroad. And I would have to say, I would give her all those same lessons that I would have learned. There are certain things, that there might be a cheaper hotel that's, slightly outside of the city, but is it the safest neighborhood? And do you want to be pulling in there at 10 o'clock at night? And you don't know that till you've experienced some of these destinations. So I try and always arrive by day. Doesn't matter if I can't get into a hotel room, but for me, that's really important because it gives me the security of the safety of daylight hours.
That's great. And maybe we can get to some of those solo traveling tips for women later in the Q&A session, because I think there are some questions coming up in the chat regarding what if you don't want to travel with a group, what are some tips? So let's move into that later, or maybe we'll get to that in some of these questions I have for you. So Rhodes Scholar did a study last year and found that 60% of your solo travelers are actually married or partnered people traveling without their spouses, mostly wives traveling without their husbands. And Maeve, can you give some insight into why this trend has been developing?
So I will say that is definitely more of a trend than women traveling with Rhodes Scholar, because that's always been happening. But there's a lot of women actually leaving their husbands behind. And from the research that we've done, what we're learning is the spouse may not be interested in the destination or the theme. And I'm not saying that men don't cook. My husband does all the cooking in my house. But like Rose, for example, talked about a cooking program in Italy. And that's a really fun thing to do with a group of girlfriends or go by yourself. And whereas, your spouse might want to go golfing. Now, I'm not trying to, be very stereotypical, but long time ago when Rhodes Scholar started, it used to be a very standard, like 3-course, very random 3 courses you'd study over a 5-day period on a college campus. And we used to always say, like, appeal to the male, appeal to the female, and one other random subject, and you can probably draw an audience in. And it depends on people's interests. And I think that's driving a lot of it. It's sort of, you know what, he's not interested in joining me on that, but I'm happy to either do it alone or go with other girlfriends.
Yeah, sounds like it's a very smart thing to do is, when you get to that point in your relationship and you're comfortable with each other and you trust each other, then you can say, hey, I'd like to go in a group to some place that you're not interested in going. Yeah. Okay, Rose, what has it been like being a woman traveling alone? So I think we touched on that earlier, but are friends and family surprised that you travel solo, and are they supportive?
My daughter says, Mom, you're like a teenager. You're never around. You're always out somewhere. It's empowering. It's it tests your instincts. It makes sure that your character judgment's intact. I don't know. It's just very rewarding to know that you can get yourself in and out of situations by, again, you have to do your research. You have to know, um, where you're going, what you're doing. But once you've once you know, you just one step at a time and off you go. I'd also say too, technology is a real big help in that because if you have a smartphone or a tablet, it's very easy to get around now. Something, that I'm sure maybe we'll talk about too with travel tips. But, as long as you got your phone charged, you can pretty much get anywhere and find the answer to any question. So, I don't know. I just think it's an empowerment. I don't know. It's strengthening that you can do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah, so how are you treated when you're out on the road as a solo traveler? Do people kind of look at you funny or, kind of question, what are you doing?
I don't know. You know what? I think the world's changing so much. I don't think so. I think they're like, wow, really? You're here by yourself? And it's like, yeah, what? And then you start a conversation about something else, and next thing you know, you've made a new friend or at least an acquaintance, and then you move on. Um, and it's really kind of nice to be sometimes to have a meal by yourself and you reflect on all of the things that you did during the day. And I don't know, it gives you that fulfillment that okay, I accomplished something I didn't think I could do.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
no, I don't think, and again, it's a little different now because again, technology plays such a big part.
that's great. So, let's go back to that topic of safety. So, as a solo traveler, not in a group, do you have tips for safety?
Um, Maeve said a good one, to arrive during the day. Um, I will reiterate again, do your research. If you want to go to Italy or France, look up that neighborhood, look up, what's it, Google Google Maps, terrain, you'll get to see and you get a feel of, okay, maybe this isn't where I want to be. And then keep doing your research. Um, I'm not that brave to just throw a pin and say, okay, I'm going here and pack up and go. I always want to do, my due diligence to make sure it is a place that number one, I want to go and that it's safe where I'm going.
Maybe do you have
Maeve?
any other tips to add?
Um, as I said, I always try and arrive into a new place by day. To me, that's just important. I always try and carry as little as possible, so I'm not worried about will someone grab that extra bag that's hanging over a shoulder, or maybe my wheeling suitcase, and I happen to still like a wheeling suitcase, and I bring it, but always a carry-on bag, and very little else. I don't want things hanging out of me that people can grab or distract. I will agree with Rose, technology has changed things completely, but I'm also very conscious of like walking down strange streets with your phone out looking for directions because there's nothing like pointing to tourists. So I do a lot of things like step into a storefront or anywhere that you can kind of step off the main drag to see that I'm looking up directions and not obviously really lost and confused about where I'm going to go. I always say this too, as I mentioned earlier, I've got 2 college-age kids, but like I say to my 20-year-old, walk anywhere with confidence. Doesn't matter what's happening inside your head or what's in your heart. You know, keep your head high, look, be aware of your surroundings and walk through anywhere with confidence, because you're less likely to be approached by, stranger danger when you look like you have a purpose. But there are things that I always make sure I do. I tend to always carry my passport with me. I know a lot of people like to leave it in the safe. I'm one of those people who could leave it behind in the safe. So a good Rhodes Scholar group leader would say, put your shoes that you're wearing tomorrow morning in the safe with your passport, and then you will never forget that one shoe because it'll remind you to open the passport. But, there's just, I always take a photocopy of my passport and have a physical copy of it with me, as well as leaving photos of my passport at home with somebody that if something was to happen. I do like air tags. Not sure, where I've sat in Heathrow Airport and waited, knowing my bag is in the airport, but you're still waiting 25 minutes for it to appear. But there's some safety in knowing that your luggage is coming. Like, should I go, the luggage isn't at the airport and we're here, should I raise an alarm now? And part of me doing that is, again, I don't want to be leaving the airport when most of the people on my flight have already left. And again, you're walking out into a strange place by yourself. It's easier come out. So that's one of the reasons why I like the AirTag, is you have a good sense of when your bag is going to arrive, or not, and you can at least deal with it early. I'm trying to think what other things, again, it's, and this is sort of falls into, I don't like arriving anywhere strange by night. I would prefer to overnight somewhere if I have to get on public transportation to the next place that I'm visiting, rather than do, a long itinerary all in one day. I will literally take, I don't know, go in piecemeal, take 2 extra stops to get to a place. But if it just ensures that I'm arriving in daylight hours. I did get caught once, by the way, with time changes, and I hadn't done that research that Rose would talk about in advance. And while I thought I was arriving in daylight hours, well, it would have been later in the evening. It was dark, but it was the time difference. Clocks had changed, and I hadn't taken it into consideration. But that's where that kind of research is really helpful in advance.
Yes. Now, you mentioned carrying your passport with you. What kind of bag are you using to hold the passport? How do you make sure somebody doesn't grab it while they're running by?
I use a crossbody bag, and it's not that I'm hiding it like flat against myself or anything like that. I use a small, easy crossbody bag. And again, though, it's keep my head up high, my shoulders back, and make it look like I know what I'm doing, and no one thinks they're going to grab a passport from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree 100%, especially some of those crossbodies, they're if they try to cut it or come behind, it's not going to tear or rip, and everything's right there in front of you. So if you had to grab some money or change, it's easy, and you keep stepping. You're right. You just keep moving. So,
and by the way, I shift my crossbody bag from shoulder to shoulder because if I'm walking down a street, I want it on the store side always. So when they talk about people coming up and grabbing things from the side, if you're on the inside, and then as I cross the street and go down the other side, I'm switching it back over the other way. But again, it doesn't look like you're nervous, but it's one other safety precaution just to keep that bag where you're not going to have people run up sort of beside you and grab as easily.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've also heard don't keep all your cash in one place. So if somebody does try to, mug you, or, if you're pulling money out to pay for something, you're not pulling out this huge wad of bills, and trying to count through foreign currency
that you may not understand, by the way, Vince, like you don't realize that bundle is worth more even, when you haven't even managed exchange rates. And sometimes, as you know, particularly a place like Egypt, you can have a lot of bills and not have a lot of money because the currency.
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah, I always split up my cash. I always try and like to bring 2 credit cards. I always look at things like, what are the credit card companies that don't charge me for international transactions? Yes, always make sure my bank allows me to withdraw money without any ATM fees. But I always carry 2 as backup, and one actually goes in my shoe if I'm wearing my sneakers, and the other comes in a crossbody bag with me.
Cool. Okay, Rose, how has travel changed for you as you've gotten older? Not to say that you're old.
I
Any special considerations that you make now that you wouldn't have thought about, say, 20 years ago?
well, I have a global entry card, which I highly recommend. We
Yes.
didn't need that before. It's fantastic. Let's see. Again, back to technology, you want to be able to have your smartphone that has internet capabilities. A lot of times you don't have to they have what's called an eSIM card. You can buy that instead of going through your phone company. Those are great. I mean, I think they're like $10 for a month. And I just did that in Sicily, and it was great because I'm not eating up the data on my phone plan back here in the US. So, you would have never thought about even, an eSIM card. What the heck is that, 20 years ago? Um, a lot of this stuff, the post 9/11, right? Back to global entry, clear ID is another one that you can get in. You have to be prepared for, security, so you have your passport ready, or some kind of that. What is it? The gold star they just said for your ID for your license. Um, and then post-COVID too, right? Depending on where you're at, where you're going, make sure that you have, vaccinated for where if you're going down to Africa, you might need something. Egypt too, we did, what do you call it? Go on to, what is it, the CD.gov or CDC, the health.
CDC.
Yeah,
Yeah, CDC.
CDC.gov. And you can look up your country and see where you're going and see if they have any requirements. Again, back to that research, always, do your homework, do your due diligence before you actually head out. So I think those are some things that have changed.
Oh, and then speaking of that, one of the things that I do is the State Department has a STEP program where you can register which countries you're going to in advance of your trip, and then they'll send you any particular warnings that they might have for that
There you
country.
go.
And also, just knowing that you're in that country, then they're more prepared to help you if something should go sideways. So people should look into that as well, the STEP program on state, I think it's something state.gov, Department of State.gov. Maeve, do you have any other, how does Rhodes Scholar tailor your programs for older adults?
Well, all of our programs are designed for older adults. So we're always looking at activity levels on programs, and that's really sort of where we really strive to ensure that anyone in our age bracket, which is 50 and over, can attend our programs. We put an awful lot of time, effort, and energy into our activity levels. I would say if you're thinking, whether it's with the Rhodes Scholar or any other tour operator that's out there, read activity levels. People spend hours ensuring that they're accurate. And the more you read, again, it's back on what Rose was saying, it's that kind of research that you know what to expect and you know what you're capable of. And I think that's even part of some of the solo travel. It's a lot of people are trying things that they wanted to try for the first time, so they'll go for it, whether it's hiking or a biking program or anything like that. But it's read like on our website, we're really careful with the day-by-day activity level. So we don't want somebody they really want to do cooking in Tuscany, but for one afternoon, we're taking a break from cooking and we're going visiting a site, but there could be 140 steps that are all uneven. You can still come cooking to Tuscany. You just may have to step out of that day, but be aware, and your group leader will give you advice on whether they think you can do it or what you could do instead. But we design every itinerary thinking of those things. And, part of it too, when people are looking at whether you're booking with a group or booking by yourself, if you can walk 3 or 4 miles a day at home, but on flat terrain, on sidewalks, no elevation, and you may not feel the same when you get to a country where the heat feels very different. It's very humid. You could have elevation. There's a lot of very things, but read the information and do that research on that destination. I will say, whether you're traveling with Rhodes Scholar or as any other group, they've done an awful lot of work for you. So even if you're traveling alone, solo, doing your own independent travel, read up on what people are paying people to do this research for you. So read those websites. They're invaluable information to use because people have taken the time to actually, you're going to be walking, 14 steps, but there are no handrails and the steps are uneven. So it doesn't feel like walking down the stairs at home. It's very different terrain, but we spend a lot of time working and ensuring that we're describing our activity levels really well to ensure that people can kind of, read it and choose what makes sense for them.
That's very smart. That's great. I hope people are paying attention when they read the descriptions. So,
Not everyone, by the way. So I encourage you all to read the descriptions. But again, even if you're only using it as a research tool or website, it's worth using because it'll give you a sense of what to expect in that area.
yeah. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out here who have wanted to travel solo but are hesitant for one reason or another. So both of you, what advice would you give them?
Oh, I say there's no better time than now. Just go. Just go. What are you waiting for? Go. Do your research, make sure you can afford it. It's in the budget. Pick a spot and just do it. What do you think, Dave?
I'd probably tone that down slightly, but not really. I would agree. Just go for it, but pick something that's of real interest to you that you've always wanted to do. And maybe not go, I don't know, to India on your first trip. Okay. Like there's amazing things to discover within the United States. You can go like travel overseas and go to Mexico, Costa Rica, Canada without spending hours traveling to get there. So find something that you really want to do or some place that you've really wanted to see. And maybe you come up with a list of 5 and take the one that's closest to home so that you gain that confidence in the fact that you can do it and then come up with what's next. But if you write that list to begin with, you'll have a list for the future. But sometimes it's worth, a weekend in New York City, a weekend in DC, a weekend in, Santa Fe, New Mexico. You don't have to go that far, but you can challenge yourself to travel alone and not be that far from home.
I think that's an excellent tip because, people who are traveling solo for the first time, it's easier if they go to a place where they speak the language and have the same currency. So,
Yes.
they just test it out by going somewhere in the United States on their own by themselves and see if they even like traveling by themselves.
And not
that's
to visit a family member. Like you're actually going to a
Don't go,
destination for a
yeah,
few days by yourself. Bring a
right.
don't
family
go
member,
visit
but
your kids. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do something completely independent for yourself. And you don't have solo travel doesn't mean like taking off on the wildest, craziest adventures. It could be a yoga retreat and you live in Northern California and you want to go to Southern California. But doing it alone is that adventuresome spirit that you should try and I don't know, if you're willing to try, go for it.
Great ideas. Um, so even if you're traveling with a group like Road Scholar, there's still free time built into the itinerary, including meals on your own. So Rose, how do you usually handle that free time? Do you plan ahead or do you just go with the flow? Do you adventure on your own or hang out with new friends that you met at the program?
Um, I'd like to do things on my own. I do a lot of photography, so there's a lot of times I just take my camera and on the downtime, I just grab my camera and my backpack and off I go and I go shooting. Um, for me, that works out great, but there's also sometimes that you've made a connection with someone. And so now you have some free time. Well, let's go to dinner because not all the meals are planned out. So you can, look around the town and find a little coffee spot. And now you're getting a chance to get to know somebody a little bit better and sharing in the meal. So it's kind of going with it. And very rarely do you get a big crowd that, okay, well, we're all going to go out to dinner because you're really making those connections with 1 or 2 people and you want to start experiencing some stuff with them and they with you, especially when you find out that you like this person. So, I don't know, that's kind of like all over the place with free time, but I tell you what, I'm not sitting in the room going, gosh, I have nobody to talk to. That is not happening. There is always somebody to talk to and always something to see.
Yeah.
And I'll also add the group leader that goes with every single, you're going to find this on any
Yes.
tour operator, but at Roadstar in particular, the group leader is also available to you. They'll give you suggestions, but they'll also might say, I haven't seen a new exhibit at XYZ Museum. I'm going there myself in my free time.
Mhm.
If you're interested, come join me. And you'll always get that opportunity on any of the programs. Either it'll be a fellow traveler like Rose, who's inviting you to do something fun because she's done all the research, which you love, a companion like Rose who's done all the work, or the group leader will give you other suggestions.
Okay, so we have to talk about the dreaded single supplement. So, Maeve, can you explain
Right.
the
I'll
single
take this one
supplement?
and I hope I can explain it. The dreaded single supplement is the dreaded single supplement, and there's no other way. It feels that, you know, I'm sitting here and I would encourage anybody to travel solo because I love doing it myself, and it is a very empowering thing to do. But gosh, it's really unfair that the travel world makes this more expensive for you to travel alone than it does to travel with somebody. I've actually been part of a couple of different groups, sort of globally, actually, about is there something, can we get the travel industry to look at this differently? But the bottom line is, whether it's a boat, whether you're on a cruise ship, whether you're in a hotel room or any form of accommodations, they're assuming it's based on two people in that room. So no matter how great our contracting team is, who are, you know, out right now contracting for 2027 on our behalf, it's very few places, unless you're completely in the off season, are they willing to give you a room for a single person at a different rate than if it was across two people. So you always are going to have to pay a single supplement. Road Scholar ensures we never mark our single supplement up. If we've been billed it, that's exactly what you're actually paying for. There are times where we will negotiate some single rooms as part of that contract. Again, we tend to only get those in sort of the shoulder or off season, because if people are filling that hotel with two people and they're getting, you know, at full price of the room, they're going to go for the revenue that they're generating. They're in a business too. So what you're seeing is really, we'd get a few. I know people then will say it says singles pay no supplement. They sell out with, you know, the 5 or 6 singles that we were able to negotiate at no additional price. And now you're into it. But one of the other things that Road Scholar does offer, because of the dreaded single supplement, is even for people traveling alone, is what we call roommate matching. So we will match you with a fellow traveler that you may never, who you have never met before, but at least it at least keeps, you can avoid having to pay the single supplement. But if you're one of those people who just like, I want to travel with a group, but I want to travel solo, but I need my privacy, unfortunately, in most instances, there's a single supplement. I would love to say we're going to cancel all single supplements. It's not within our power to do so, but it's just sort of how it works. You know, I've seen some companies who they basically say singles pay no supplement, but in those instances, the chances are the couples are actually they're socializing the costs, because they're still paying the same for a room with 2 people versus 1 people, and all they're doing is spreading the costs across the whole group. We try, that's all I can say. If any of you know anybody who can, I don't know, convince lawmakers, people in the travel industry, particularly accommodations, to think about this differently. I mean, there is a huge rise in solo travel, and hotels and boats would get more people if they would reduce single supplements. I will also add, there's also, like, when you go to Europe and you book a single room, you're paying the same price as somebody else, but the rooms are tiny because they're like one twin bed. And so you also feel as a single someone is doing wrong by you. Okay, I will not deny that. But you can, sometimes single supplements in Europe are lower, but expect you could be in one of those small rooms with a twin bed.
And Rose, do you typically opt for your own room, or do you do the roommate match program? And go ahead.
I
Yeah.
haven't done the roommate match. I did travel to Egypt with a very good friend of mine, so we used, we shared the room. But my other trips, I did go solo, just because, I don't know, I'm old enough that, okay, and I didn't find the single supplement that, it wasn't double the price. It was higher, but I found that Rhodes Scholar was very fair in that, and understanding that I am getting the benefit of having a room to myself. So, I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, I like having that privacy.
And have you found that even when traveling independently outside of Road Scholar, there are added costs of being solo?
Well, yeah, especially like if you're trying to do, oh, I don't know, like let's say you were doing a wine tasting, right? They want group pricing. They want to give you, so now you're going to end up waiting, or you're going to pay a higher fee because you're going to have to join a group anyway. So you've got to look at the kind of activities that you're thinking about doing. And if there is a different charge, you'll find that most of them will tell you up front there is.
All right. So Rose, what destinations have you traveled to that felt the most solo friendly?
Oh, Costa Rica. I did a photography, digital photography in Costa Rica, and it was what they call a mini group. I think, Maeve, is what you say. There were 12 or under, I
Micro
think,
group.
micro
Yeah,
group. There were
micro
only
group.
10 of us, which was fantastic. And we had people that had, really beautiful cameras with giant lenses. And then we had people that used a tablet and an iPhone, which was crazy, but they got beautiful results. But it was really geared for you and your equipment, understanding and again through Road Scholar, because you're taking classes about lighting and f-stop and aperture, and the places that you're going, they're challenging you to capture something that you normally wouldn't do. So if you're a shooter, if you like photography, I'm telling you, and the group leader, fantastic. I still keep in touch with him. I see his work all the time on Instagram. Love, love, love it. So, again, I had my own room. I made, back to what you were saying, Maeve, that people that were signing up for that obviously like to take pictures. So right off the bat, I knew I was in a group of people, like-minded people that, yep, this is what we're doing. So it was fantastic. Right, 2 thumbs up if you like to shoot.
All right. Well, we are running short of time, so I think we'll flip directly into the questions and answers now.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Jacqueline and Joyce, who will run that part of our discussion. And thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Vince.
Vince. Thank
Jacqueline,
you.
take it away.
Well, thank you, Vince. My goodness. Excellent
Uh,
questions. So now I feel a lot better now because uh, I feel like I can go somewhere by myself.
Yay. Come on.
Before it was like, there's no way that I'm going to do this one, but that's great. So my very first question is, it's another name for Rhodes Scholars way back in the day. Do you guys remember what the name was?
I do.
That's
Elder?
Elder Hostel.
Yes. What
Hostel.
happened to that one? One of the ladies said that they thought it was great. They liked staying in the dorm rooms versus the fancy hotels. So what made that change?
All right, so we changed the name a number of years ago because our participants complained about the name Elder and Hostel. Okay, so we changed the name, but we're the exact same organization. The mission hasn't changed, everything else remains the same. I will say there are less programs on college campuses than there used to be back in 1975 when we first started. But part of that is not necessarily a choice we made. It's the college campuses no longer wanted us, as well as population of older adults didn't necessarily want to stay in dorm rooms and walk down the hallway and have a shared bathroom. We just spent quite some time talking about single supplements, and that seems to appeal to more of the current day traveler than people traveling 50 years ago. But really, what forced us out into hotels and conference centers was really the colleges and universities. I'm sure we've all seen they offer sports camps, you name it. They offer all these other things that are bringing in a lot more revenue on campus when the dorm rooms are empty than anything that we were offering. So it was sort of a forced change, but not a bad change. I like my private bath. I will be the first to say that when I travel, even if I'm sharing a room with someone. But we are the same organization. Nothing has changed other than that brand, the label.
The grand thing. Okay, great. So that's good to know. I never heard it. I remember hostels a long time ago, but like you said, there have been some differences. So now this is a question that's kind of like off the books here. So what other groups would you recommend besides your group? Now I know your group is definitely a good group, but do you have like who is your sister rival or somebody else that you would
So I
possibly
would say there's nobody who does what we do exactly, but that's because of the educational content and the not-for-profit mission. Okay. But if you're looking for a lower priced trip and get to see some of these destinations, I would highly recommend, and when I say lower price, I'm not saying cheap, but maybe cheaper than Road Scholar because we're very inclusive. Everything is included in the price point. But Gate One does a great job. OAT does a great job. Quillette does a great job. Talk does a phenomenal job. But Talk is definitely sort of we might be like 3.5 to 4 star if you're thinking about accommodation stars. Talk will be more like 5 star. So it's definitely more expensive, but you're definitely getting those type of accommodations and amenities that would come with it. But I believe in Road Scholar, but if you also if you want to travel to just travel, but there are some great companies out there that do really great work. I would never take that from any of them. But if you really want to learn and have an educational experience and get sort of in depth in the location and the destination or the theme, nobody quite does it like Road Scholar does it, but that's what makes us different. That's all.
great.
But there are
That's
great
a
travel companies that deal with people over 50, Joyce, that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I just wanted to kind of, this was a question that was in the chat, and I didn't want to say you have to go to Rose Scholars, you have to go someplace else because of course you're here, but I just wanted to just kind of make sure we brought that one. Now you did talk about roommates, which is good, and if there's a single, and we did talk about there's a little bit more of a cost, which makes sense. Uh, let's see. It's somebody mentioned here. I like airport hotels because they usually have free shuttles going. Do you normally use those when you're doing Road Scholars?
We will when we're planning trips, but it really is sort of if you're coming from like right now, I know of a group that happens to be in the Cotswolds, okay, in England. But if you're coming from the Cotswolds to get a flight at 11 a.m. out of Heathrow the following morning, we will probably come up the night before and overnight in an airport hotel. I will also say, then back to even when Vince was asking me about me traveling alone, I use airport hotels rather like to add almost that extra day so that I could sleep at an airport, get on a flight early the following morning, and arrive at my destination in daylight. There's a reason why there are hotels at airports. They serve a lot. Now, again, it depends on the destination. Some airports are not as close to city centers, but most of the large chain hotels will offer you so you don't have to get an airport transfer or worry about public transportation. You call ahead, they'll send their transfer van. You can get picked up at the airport and straight into the hotel. And they'll offer use that same transfer van into shuttles into a downtown area if it's close by. But
Okay,
it's definitely
great.
an
Thanks.
advantage.
It
What I
is
don't
definitely
love
an
about
advantage.
airport hotels is it's not a place you're going to go out and explore much by yourself. It's the location that is where its usefulness comes in, Joyce.
Okay, yeah, just to kind of quickly. I think we have just for a couple of more. Some people agree that they love it. The fanny pack is a good one. I used a fanny pack in Paris last year. I prefer, the hands-free, which is something that, definitely is a good one. Let's see. Passport and money belts under clothes. What do you think about that? You don't want to have to start digging up under your clothes. What about that? What do you guys think about
I
that?
personally hate it. I'm looking at Rose to
No.
see her reaction, but some people love it. It's a personal preference, but I don't want to be like, yeah, kind of untucking and pulling stuff out. And I don't tend to use them, but I know a lot of people really like them. It, I don't know, Rose, what would you say?
No, I think it makes you a target, right? Especially if you're in an area like I just came back from Portugal, Porto, a lot of pockets. And so if you're over there, messing around and they know, oh, hey, look at this. And now they're going to start following you. No, thank you. I'd rather have something right in front of me. Out it comes and it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, because speaking of the cash, there's also another quote. It says, if you're going where cash is still necessary, make sure that the bills are what, like their quality bills, or what do you guys think
Yes.
about that?
True.
First
You
of all, I
know,
would
Yeah.
you
say
know,
traveling
country
throughout Europe.
bills or regular bills or what?
I would say traveling throughout Europe, guys, cash is, everyone are accepting cards. Apple Pay, like cards are the way to go, particularly in place in Europe. But there are certain places in the world, Egypt and one of them, India is probably another, and parts of Africa, that you can like tip or pay for small things in US dollars in cash. But if you're using US dollars, they want them to be clean, fresh bills for some reason. People are turning away the old tattered ones because they're of no use to them. So I am
Oh,
going on a program in the fall where I know I'm going to be in Africa. I'm already collecting those $1 bills because now even if you go to your local bank, they don't always stock the level of like paper currency that you might need anymore. So I've been collecting my ones and fives, so I'll have nice clean bills by the time I travel in the fall, and so I can tip as I go or pay for some, a small
Hmm.
handmade thing to a local. Yes.
wow. So thank you very much. We're really out of time. Vince, you've covered a lot of questions. Of course, you'll be able to look at this again on the YouTube. But right now, I have to cut it off. There's so many more questions in this chat, but we'll be able to do that later. Right now, I got to give it back to Jacqueline. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Joyce.
much. This was really amazing. We probably could have gone for another 2 hours, but we did get some good takeaways, some good tips about safety, stepping in a doorway, to look up your things on your phone. So we really appreciate that, whether you're solo traveling or solo traveling with a group. So thank you so much. Our next day Coffee Tuesdays meeting is Tuesday, June 10th at 9 p.m. We invite the participation, Professor in Neutrality and They State on Dr. Cassidy will be back to talk about how you can move your anxiety to get a good night's sleep. Our daily basis, the power, power, the power and limitations. Again, we roles, we are specialists on
Jacqueline, your audio has gone bad.
Yeah, Jacqueline, I think we're just going to interrupt you because your audio is
Yes, it's
not, we
gone out.
can't hear you at all.
Okay, you can hear me at all? Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah,
anyhow,
so talking about this slide, we've got some upcoming Tea and Coffee Tuesdays. June 10th, we got a one regarding pickleball, which I play. And July 8th, we've got Dr. Erin Cassidy Eagle from Stanford University regarding managing anxiety so you can sleep. And then on July 24th, we've got Piggy Bank Essentials. Connie, if you can move to that slide. We will discuss power of attorney documents and their power and limitations. So that's very useful information. And again, a big thank you to our guests, Maeve and Rose, and our chat moderator, Joyce and Jacqueline, of course, our tech specialist, Sarita, Connie, and me. And that was Jacqueline Cole and your AARP volunteer host. Thank you all for joining us today. This concludes our program. Thank you so much.